Hey everyone. So today I'm going to be going over something pretty briefly about identifying relative strength in coins as you flip through the charts to try to figure out which one do I want to kind of focus on. Which one is showing the most trending price action, and is it close enough to a level where it provides an asymmetric opportunity? Now, before I get started, be sure to like and subscribe because it helps the channel out. And yeah, be sure to leave a comment if you find some of the stuff that I teach useful. And so earlier today, there was some relative strength in XRP, and I want to tip you off to how you can identify this for yourself. So I've traveled back to the specific time where XRP was showing clear relative strength that you could tell on the chart. And I want to give you an idea of what this was like, right? So if we scroll back, Sol looked like this, BNB looked like this, ETH, BTC, XRP, Doge, and Hype. So did you see there what the difference was with XRP? With XRP, it specifically had very clear trending upwards price action, whereas something like BTC was starting to curl back down, ETH was also starting to curl back down, as was Sol as well. Another thing to note is that where did the drop begin? That really began with the economic data. So where was it in relation to the economic data? Well, Sol is all the way at the bottom, right? ETH over here is still at the bottom as well. BTC, well, it's like 80% to the bottom. What about XRP? XRP nearly recovered this entire gap, and it's like 40% away from here. So you'll kind of be able to gather relative strength based on identifying two positions in the chart and comparing them, where the relative position is on these charts compared to other charts. And you can do this with historical data as well. So you'll notice this economic wick on XRP had a bottom over here, and now it's actually sitting above that level. What about BTC? Well, BTC is actually at that level. What about ETH? ETH is below that level. Sol is below that level. And so you'll kind of be able to get an idea of local relative strength based on that. So you'll also be able to notice this on like a higher time frame. So this is Sol, and you'll notice like there was this weakness where it pulled back really hard, and then there was some upwards price action, right? But now look what happens when we go to ETH. Look at this. ETH had really strong price action, and during that period of a pullback, it barely pulled back, and then it had more strong trending upwards price action. So just follow the chart, right? The chart looks like this, whereas Sol's chart, what I see when I look at Sol, what I see when I look at Sol is this, right? Compare the two. That, where you had very little of a dip, versus this, where you have a huge dip. Even if you don't count this dip, this is still a larger dip, right? So those are some ideas of relative strength that you can clearly see on the higher time frame. And the idea of combining the two, high time frame relative strength as well as low time frame relative strength, allows you to have more conviction in current moves. And you can add that onto key levels. So the confluence of this, as well as it being a key level around 301, which you'll notice that if we go to the SBR highs, this 301 level aligns with the SBR highs. This could be convincing to take, or this could be the start of interesting relative strength. So now you might want to start paying attention a little bit to XRP, maybe taking a risk-defined trade against this key level. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of what we did here with the 2800 break, which was we identified that there was relative strength into a level both on the low time frame and the high time frame, and it was crossing the key level. This kind of had a lot of factors coinciding with each other, and that's what made it like a higher conviction trade. And so we know that XRP is showing relative strength now, but how do we act on this, right? Well, like I mentioned, we could take a risk-defined trade where we just take it against here, maybe targeting local highs if we're taking a lower time frame trade, maybe targeting highs up here if we're taking it on like a higher time frame. You could also choose to maybe have a retest of the level and then defining like a trade that way. Maybe it would only go up to here though. But just because it has relative strength doesn't mean that it's like an instant high time frame play. Right now, there's currently no narrative on XRP, so it could be interesting to watch for a narrative. Right now, because there's no narrative that we know of, we don't know if these are actually insiders positioning or if these are just large players just deciding to buy XRP because of some thesis that they have. Or it could just be like some really rich people just buying XRP or holding $3, either way. So, what we now do is we want to wait for sustained relative strength and then maybe look for key levels to be breached. At some point, I feel like if there's enough capital flowing into the market, it's probably going to start leaking out somehow. And so, if we start to see this relative strength into a key level, then that might actually be time to take like a higher conviction trade. Of course, for me, I'm not sure if I would say $3.40 is like a super key level, but I think it is like a level to watch. And also, when we do this, we also should be taking into consideration what the price action is on Bitcoin as well as Ethereum. And now, because I'm recording this in the future, what I want to show you is the current price action, because I still do notice some relative strength in XRP compared to things like Sol and ETH. Obviously, from here you can see that ETH actually bounced off this level here, which coincides with 2021 highs. And so it's kind of like recovering a little bit. You can see I have like a zone here. Not really doing anything much with it right now, just holding just holding runners from down here. And things like Sol, they haven't yet even reclaimed this wick. So yeah, ETH is still at the wick. BTC is slightly above the wick. And XRP is still way above the wick. And XRP is actually in this holding pattern. What I would like to see from it is maybe start to reclaim a little higher here, and then I think that that'll start to have a bit more significance for me, and so I would be paying attention to it even more. But yeah, with relative strength, you can start to spot this pretty quickly, especially if you have multiple charts open like I do on my window. Personally, I only see like the past day or so of price action. And so at some point, like I mostly only use the most recent trend to kind of gather if there's local relative strength. And then I mostly look at the higher time frames to determine if it's near like level. And yeah, that's kind of how I personally look at relative strength. You can also just kind of see it if you just keep on scrolling past the charts, right? If you just scroll past these, you'll come across different shapes and sizes of the chart. And then you'll notice like some are weak, some are strong. Like look at this. Like Vine. This looks pretty good if Vine wasn't such a shitcoin. Yeah, and then a lot of them are like this, like an L shape, whereas some of these are like a V shape. And then there's like ADA, which is like kind of grinding upwards. Some other coin that I have on my list, MYX. I wouldn't trade some of these just because of the levels they're at, but you can still notice that there's some strength to it. And especially with XRP, it's kind of like one of the upwards shape here, whereas things like ETH are still like an L shape. And like BTC is also like an L shape. And so over time, you can kind of just like scroll through these charts and just kind of gather like things are strong, things are weak. And then you'll be able to actively see it on the chart if you just compare them side by side. And yeah, hope that was helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe if you found this useful. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.